I thought that I was going to be a corporate executive for my career. I was going to do really well in there. And in fact, they told me I had a bit of a heart murmur. Well, that heart murmur actually led to urgent open heart surgery about 16 days after diagnosis. I just let go of all my fear. I let go of the dream of wanting to be a corporate executive for the rest of my life. I let go of it all and I created an entire new vision for what I thought I wanted to do.
Today, we're going to talk about how you can turn your growth chaos into clarity with your real estate investing so that you can scale without burning out. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Freedom Blueprint. I'm Adrienne Green, and today I am with Meghan Hubner. Meghan, thanks for joining me.
Yes, no problem. I'd love to be here.
So, Meghan, as we get started, can you give our listeners an idea of what does your real estate investing look like?
Absolutely. So we live in British Columbia, Canada. We invest in British Columbia. We also invest in Alberta. We invest in Saskatchewan. We invest in Ohio. So we actually in Mexico too. So we are definitely investing like out of province without a doubt. Obviously, if you know the Canadian marketplace, you'll know British Columbia is quite expensive and it's not necessarily a very good place to invest anymore, unfortunately.
And so you've evolved along the way, and you've even evolved, like you were saying, to Mexico and to the US as well, correct?
That's right. Yes. In Canada, we have a mix of infill development, short-term rentals, long-term rental, multifamily portfolio. And then in Ohio and then in Mexico, we've done some flips.
And in addition to your own investing, you also work with investors and help them as well.
That's right. So I work as a business consultant, helping real estate investors how to understand how to run their portfolio as a business.
Which I love. So let's dive into some of that wisdom and get that right into our listeners' ears as soon as we can. So what I'd like to start off with is, you've worked with a wide range of businesses before coming into the investing space as well. What is one key system or mindset shift that you think real estate investors really must adopt in order to scale successfully?
I think it's going to come up a lot in our conversation today, and that is really understanding if you have one property, you have a business. Because you do not need to have a dozen properties or multifamily properties or straight development in order to be running a business. You are running an active business the moment you buy your first property. So shifting your mindset to realize that, okay, I'm a business operator now. I'm not just doing this on the side of my desk. I'm not just, a weekend warrior here. Is you really do have a business. And this is one of the areas that I feel very passionate about because I see investors fall down in this area so often.
Well, that's such a good point because, we see it all the time. People are like, oh, I'm not there yet. And that also can relate to like the feeling of like not being good enough or not being experienced enough. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, when you make that dive into real estate, unlike other businesses, I've worked with multiple different industries. My background is in medical and pharmaceutical sales. Businesses grow and they grow steadily and they grow in good pace and things, but real estate grows incredibly fast. And we don't see that in any other industry. I have clients that are buying 100 doors in a year, right? And so your business is really just exploding. And so when you don't put those business fundamentals in, that's where people really get stung. And that's where investors get stung too, to be honest.
That's a really good point. It can grow so fast. And so we need to take it seriously and run it like a business from property door number one. Love that. Continuing with like the idea that, real estate investing can grow so much. What are some of the common operational bottlenecks that you see when these real estate investor businesses try to grow? How's that showing up?
Yeah, it shows up in bottlenecks primarily. And the one thing I'll continue to say is the bookkeeping. The bookkeeping and the finances are usually a bottleneck for everyone. And in return, that ends up being the operator, you being the bottleneck, because you don't have the capabilities of every skill set. And you might be really good at analyzing numbers, or you might be really good at choosing finishings, but you might not be that good on bookkeeping and things. And the way I usually explain it to clients is if you were to walk into any large corporation, we see a table of accounting and finance. We see a table of human resources professionals. We see a table of sales and then marketing, right? And so you have all of these team members. They look very different because they are all so different in their personality types. And yet as the small business operator, you are wearing every one of those hats. So you really need to determine where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and then understand where to hire out so that you don't become the bottleneck in all of those areas.
There is so much wisdom in that. First, I would say, yes, 99% of investors, if they don't have a bookkeeper or a VA during their book, I can like bet money that they're behind on their bookkeeping. And then they don't have up-to-date finances to make informed decisions. And then
Exactly.
two, what I love is that you hit on it. If we could dive into more, the personality piece, because, when I help people get virtual assistants, that's a big thing to me, that we hire the right personality fit for the job, like the tasks that are going to be done, and for the investor who's going to work with that VA, like we want a good personality fit. So can you kind of speak to what investors need to know in terms of roles and personality?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea for number one to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are, right? So, which of those buckets do you fit into? Okay, this is not you. Let's hire that out. I also do think if you're bringing people in house and stuff, I do always think there's a lot of validity to be doing personality profiling, whether that is DISC or whether that's human design or something along those lines, so that you're really understanding the personality type that you are, how you lead, how you interact with your employees, but then also how your employees are. When you have an employee that's continuing to fall down in a specific area and stuff, is it because, of their actual personality profiling and that's maybe not the right fit for them? Are they really not in the right position? Or potentially have you not actually led and trained them to the right way that they need to be trained?
Such a great point. And I love how you share, like, it really doesn't matter what you use, what
Yeah.
personality test. It just needs to be one that you're consistent with and that you know well. So, like, for me, I know the disc well. And so I lean into that and it works well. But it doesn't matter what the test is. You just want to know it for yourself, know it for your hires, and use it to help with leadership. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, while we're talking about frameworks in that sense, as you help investors navigate their growth, what is your go to framework for helping them scale without burning out or losing control?
Yeah, it's a great question. But number one thing I want everyone to do is I want you to segment your business into the operational tasks, the human resource tasks, the sales and marketing, and then the accounting and finance. So when we take a look at those four business buckets and we really start prioritizing our business in that way, like you sit down to work on your accounting on Friday afternoon at the end of a hard day and things, you know that Friday afternoon is probably not your best time for accounting. And maybe that's the time that you're most creative, in fact, because you've just absorbed so much content from the week. And now that's when your creativity flows. So maybe sales and marketing is really what you should be focusing in on Fridays. So we want to get into a weekly rhythm. We want to be, bucketing all of our tasks into those things. So understanding first our finances and our numbers. So how much money are we making? How much is our properties costing us? How much money do we potentially have to then spend on the sales and marketing? What are we selling? Are we looking for investors? Are we looking to grow the Instagram portfolio? Do we want in-house help for marketing so that we're not doing all those activities every week? Once we realize that, then we can say, okay, now who's going to help us with this? And that's your human resources component. And it doesn't matter if you are one solo operator with a couple contract workers or fractional workers, you still have human resources in your business. When you hire a contractor,
Mhm.
you have human resources in your business because then you're getting into a rhythm of how you're going to pay him and how you're going to communicate with him. So all of those things are wrapped into all different areas of our business. And then the last is we take a look at those operational buckets and what can we do operationally to then take weight off us and really help get
Mhm.
support in all of the areas of business.
I love that. I'm hearing structure, I'm hearing systems, and I'm hearing like maybe some time blocking, which are all my favorite
Definitely some
things.
time blocking. Yeah, it has to be.
All right. So
Yeah.
we've got this vision of these buckets. The next question I think is related. There may be some overlap, but take it where you want.
Yeah.
For the investors who feel like they're doing it all, what would you recommend as the first thing, the first system process that they should build to start freeing up time and improving their efficiency?
First thing is getting your accounting, your bookkeeping is always going to be that. So getting your accounting and your bookkeeping organized. If you don't have help and support in that and you're drowning in that area, figure that out first. Second thing, you're going to probably you're going to go to Adrienne, you're going to hire a virtual assistant who's going to help you with all of the other things, right, that you may not excel at. Now, a lot of times people come in and you probably see this as well, Adrienne. I think you've got a great tool for it. Somebody comes in, they say, I'm going to hire a VA. I'm going to get them to all the VA things and my life's going to be so easy. And so the VA comes in and they're like, okay, what should I do? I don't know, all the VA things. Okay, well, what would you like me to do? Right. And so we really have to prepare ourselves when we're going to bring in a staff member, regardless of whether it's fractional or just a few hours a week. We have to prepare to make sure that we know what we're doing. So we're staying up here in the high value tasks, we're outsourcing some of the lower value tasks, and we're really determining where our time is best spent. So then we can create a job description, right? You take those high value tasks, those are the things you're doing. You take the lower value tasks, those are the things the VA is doing. And those lower value tasks become the job description for the VA that's going to be brought on. The
Love
next
it.
thing, of course, leads into standard operating procedures. And so if you are the one doing the job, writing out a standard operating procedure is literally just how things work within your business. And it can be as detailed as log into this bank account, pay this bill with this account. Like it has to be very process driven. But if you are doing some of that work right now, fantastic. If you're not doing that work and the VA is going to help you create that work, get them to write it or
Mhm.
get ChatGPT to write it, right? You write in the framework of ChatGPT, help standard operating procedure. This is why people don't build standard operating procedures in the first place because they sit there with a roadblock. not knowing how to start. They don't even know what it should look like, right? Go to ChatGPT, dump in some prompts, get it back, edit it how you need it, and boom, in 20 minutes, you have your first standard operating procedure. And you've broken through the wall of how to actually get it started.
Yes, and I love that because yes, there's such a block people have with these SOPs, and it's like ChatGPT can help and just get something started and realize your first one isn't going to be God's gift to SOPs, and that's okay.
They're
It's
all
gonna
working
get you
documents,
started.
right? Yeah.
Yes, very good point. So let's talk about when you work with these investors, is there a system that you find to be overlooked or something they don't value enough, but it's really impactful with either their profitability or their time freedom?
I think the number one is the time freedom. And I don't think enough people are utilizing systems like property management software, right? So some people are outsourcing, which is great, and property management is taking care of that. But if you're self-operating, you should absolutely be using something like Buildium or TurboTenant, something to help you manage those properties. That would be after accounting and finance, after potentially hiring a VA. Without a doubt, I would get those systems in place for how you're actually managing those properties, especially if you're self-managing and you're scaling. That would be my first
Love it. The
recommendation.
tech piece, such a big help. Very good point. We've talked a lot about operations, which I love. Let's shift a little bit and talk about like that client service, right? So how can real estate investors think about optimizing their customer or their client journey, whether this is guests in their short-term rentals, whether it's tenants in their long-term rentals? What wisdom do you have about thinking about that part of the investor, I guess, workload?
I would standardize at any point. Standardize the locks, standardize the naming convention on how you change the locks every year, standardize the amount of product and toilet paper that you put into your Airbnbs, standardize whether you're doing olive oil, shampoo and conditioner and body soap, or, whether you're just doing olive oil. The more you can standardize those things, and it doesn't even become a decision anymore. I know operators as well, they have the same coffee pot at every Airbnb. Right? Because then they just know if that coffee pot breaks, then you can replace the canister from something that was, previously has died on you, or where to get the parts from, how it works, things like that. So the more you can systemize and the more you can take less thought process out of it, the easier it's going to be for you.
I love that example because we actually, in our short-term rentals, just changed out. We had this one house that had like the standard drip coffee maker that had lasted for years. And in all our other houses, we've switched to like a drip and a Keurig combo. And this finally, like this last one died and we needed to replace that. And I'm like, now we can be standard and all of our houses can have the same coffee maker.
It's a celebration.
Don't have to think about it. They ask so much about what kind of coffee maker you have because they want to prepare, even though it's in the house manual or whatever.
Yeah, you can standardize things. You can standardize the way your internet bills are paid at your property, to standardize the way that your water bills are paid every year, things like that. And then if you wanted to take all of that up a step, then you're going to start implementing a project management software, which is going to be Monday.com or your Asana.com, something along those lines, where you can just dump all of this into there. And then every year it's going to give you a reminder to descale the coffee pot and to deep clean in the property and to clean the dryer vents and things like that.
You're speaking my language. I love it. And I love how even talking about like client experience, you took it back to like systems.
Absolutely. It just takes the bandwidth away, right? We don't have that much bandwidth because we're so overloaded these days.
Right. I always think with decision fatigue, I always think it was the guy from Apple who always wore the same clothes every day.
Oh yeah. Black, Steve Jobs.
Yes. I'm like, that's my goal. Like as much as we can take away decisions that we have to make, low-level decisions, we can then function more in our top 20%. So great point on that.
Great example.
Are you planning a real estate event, mastermind, or podcast and want a speaker who delivers real, actionable strategies? I teach investors how to run their portfolios like a business without the chaos. Book me for your next event at adriennegreen.com/speaking. And that link is in the show notes as well.
So we've talked a lot about systems and said things in theory or in the abstract. Sometimes it can help our listeners to have like a real life example, right? So can you maybe share from yourself or one of your clients some real life examples of a business transformation from implementing these systems and these workflows?
Yeah, I mean, we've been able to, achieve much higher income levels for companies and things when we are able to go in and actually do that. But the biggest thing is that a lot of times, like I want to catch people when they are early. When they have 2 or 3 properties, that's great. Let's start working together, right? When you have 35 properties, that's really hard to repair. The thing that I find most of the time is the number one question we answer is, what's your break even? Well, it's such a simple one, right? Where we had these business transformations where they came in and at the start, they weren't even entirely sure what their break even was for their operating of the business. as well as their properties, because those are two separate things, right? You've got your fixed costs for running a business, and you've got your fixed costs and your variable costs for running the properties. We've increased income. We have increased investor commitments. We have increased brand recognition. We have increased emails by 200%, like so many different metrics in all different areas of the business.
I love metrics, right? And you mentioned break even. I love, KPIs, and we can track these key performance indicators. If somebody was coming to you as a investor who's like, I'm not sure what I should focus on, are there any certain metrics or KPIs or numbers like that you think this would be like your top 5 or something that you think are the most important for them to know and to track?
Yeah, absolutely. And number one, I would break it down by per property. Is each of your properties performing? If they're not performing, that's what you need to really understand. Sometimes, sure, if you have a portfolio of 50 or 150, you can absorb some of those, but why are you keeping them on if they're dragging along? So number one, we always start is what is the break even on the properties? Which properties are performing, versus which ones are not? Then we take a look at the fixed costs versus variable costs of running the actual business. How are you paying yourself? Do you have any funds to hire? And what is the goal of hiring? Those are kind of the first areas that we start with, but it always starts with financial analysis.
Yes, I love that. If you're a listener and you're a little uncomfortable with that, that's okay and that's normal. And that's why you hire somebody like Meghan to come in and help, because most people struggle with this. And yet
Yeah,
it's also very transformational when you can get it all ironed out.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we're in Q4 of 2025. If an
Yeah.
investor could only focus, because we want to have like our one thing, right?
Yeah.
If they were going to focus or implement one system this quarter to move toward a scalable, sustainable, growing business with their investments, what would you recommend and why?
I would recommend understanding your finances, making sure that you understand your break-even fixed versus variable costs so that you can make strategic decisions in 2026.
Yep. So you can understand that basis so that then you can be smart with your decisions for growth in 2026.
Right? If that's a goal of yours, when in actual fact, your business is in a negative cash flow position of $1,500 a month, right? So you want to
Right.
be looking at every property, analyzing it for highest and best use, and then determining whether you're keeping those properties or whether if you do want to hire and you need an extra $1,500, you're now going to go and bring in 2 more properties or 3 more properties so that you can have that $1,500 and now go hire.
Right. Very good point. All right. You have given us so much wisdom. I'd love to ask our closing quick questions that
Yeah,
let people know a little bit more about you as well. So
sure.
the first is, what is your go-to tool or system for managing operations?
I really like Monday.com as a project management software. I find that the task feature is not quite as good as ClickUp. So ClickUp, I would say, or Monday.com would be my top 2 recommendations if you are looking to start bringing in some type of software to help supporting you. But of course, that is going to be after Buildium or a Turbo Tenant if you don't have property management software in place already.
Perfect. Love it. I am like Monday.com's biggest fans,
Okay.
just so you know.
Okay, perfect.
I joke that like the way other people are fans of like a sports team, like I have that level of like fandom for Monday.com. So. So next, if you could go back, what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self when you were just starting out with your investing journey?
Oh my gosh. I agonized over my first property. Like, agonized over it. I asked everyone out there. I talked to so many people. And, I remember having this pivotal conversation with one friend. And he was like, you know what? Men buy based on finances and women buy based on emotion. And if you want to buy now, just go ahead and base it on your emotion and go ahead and buy. Because it was right at the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver, Canada. And we didn't know if the market was going to skyrocket or if it was going to crash. And this was my very first time buying property. And I will never forget that conversation because it was so impactful for me. And I realized that I have not made emotional decisions. I've made strategic decisions all along the way, but it kind of lit a fire in me, of course. So I bought the property. I held the property for the next 5 years. And even when people tell you never hold a property in negative cash flow and things, this was my first property ever. I couldn't emotionally let go of it, but I knew in the end it would pay off. Absolutely, it paid off, right? That gave me the leverage to then go buy a townhouse when I finally sold that property after 5 years. And that kind of kickstarted the journey because I bought my first 2 properties within 12 months of each other and got to that common number of 4 where people go, okay, I guess I'm tapped out. I don't really know what to do next. And it wasn't until later when I started my consulting business that I actually realized that real estate investing was an entire industry in itself. And from there, I've just continued to grow and scale from then.
I love that. I love that. And kind of giving us a glimpse into a little bit of your history and your background. And that reminded me, something we haven't even talked about yet is how you are location independent from your investing. So that it was only 15 years ago, your first property, and the life you have now. Tell the listeners a little bit about what you've been able to create in terms of lifestyle for you and your family due to your investing in part.
Yeah, it's a path that I never thought I'd see myself to take, to be honest. I thought that I was going to be a corporate executive for my career. That's what I just assumed, right? But living in British Columbia, we only have X amount of opportunities for growth and scaling. And when I got to my goal of regional sales manager, selling in the hospital, selling in the OR, managing a multi-million-dollar territory, I thought, what's next? Because I got there and I realized that along the way I had forgotten to set new goals. And so it wasn't until after I leaped out of the corporate world, I did actually have a life-changing situation happen. We had been trying to grow our family and weren't successful at that moment in time. I ended up getting this new contract for a new position, just kind of almost gifted to me, it seemed like. And through that new position, they did a health assessment. And in that health assessment, I thought, as an athlete, I was going to do really well in there. And in fact, they told me I had a bit of a heart murmur. Well, that heart murmur actually led to urgent open heart surgery about 16 days after diagnosis. And so after that, I just let go of all my fear. I let go of the dream of wanting to be a corporate executive for the rest of my life. I let go of it all and I created an entire new vision for what I thought I wanted to do. And here I am
My
today,
goodness.
living that vision. And on those days where entrepreneurship feels really hard and clunky, I have to go back to the thought that I have captured so many more moments with my young children because I'm not dropping them off at daycare every day, which was not my priority anymore. I did it with my older one for the first couple of years, but then I left corporate when she was 3. So it's been a transformation, that's for sure.
I think a lot of Canadians dream you don't have to live in Canada 12 months a year, right?
That is right. We actually love to ski and snowboard. So we actually, my daughter desperately misses the winter, which is hilarious. But yeah, we've been location independent now for about 3 years. And it is literally from everything that we've created, from the real estate investments that we have. I don't have to worry about retirement anymore. I don't have to worry about trying to save for my kids' RESP and things. I have those things organized because of the freedom that real estate has given us. And the ability to see what's possible. I think that is one of the greatest gifts that real estate offers, is when you start surrounding yourself with other real estate investors, you get to see what is possible for you to create. Like you guys, living the dream of traveling the world right now and being location independent and running your real estate and running your business. I consult on this. I have my business. I do consulting for other companies and other real estate brands as well. And then a real estate portfolio too, taking care of some of the bigger things that you typically would be saving for. And not to mention, the cost of living in Canada is so high that when we live around the world, we save a lot of money.
Yes, that is so true. And I feel like we need to shout that for the rooftops for the people who still have these limiting beliefs on all the things. So that's part of it. So I love that.
Absolutely. It's possible. I mean, I just want to say that it's possible for everyone. And I think that everyone should be involved in real estate in some capacity, even if it's not allowing you to clear your T2 or your T4. It's still allowing you to, put savings away and look after yourself in 20 to 30 years. And I think we can both attest to, it's not a get rich thing fast. It is a slow and steady wins the race type thing. And it's beautiful to watch.
Yes, I love it. And then the final question that I have before we get into how people can connect with you is, what is a book or other resource that's been pivotal in your investing journey?
The first thing that I read, one of the books that I read actually in my corporate journey, was called The Big Leap. And there was a portion in there that said, the question was, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I remember distinctly sitting at my dining room table with my boss and a few other colleagues. And I thought, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? I'd learn how to make money so that I could travel the world with my family. And I said it, I verbalized it, right? Said it even with my boss in the room there. And she was like, oh yeah, that sounds really amazing. Right? So the big leap was one. If you are sitting in a position where you feel like you're stuck, that's a great one. It has nothing to do with real estate investing, but it's a great one to get started. And then, of course, the pivotal one is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I read years ago based on my father's recommendation, but it just didn't kick in, didn't register for me. But, now moving ahead, I think that anything by Brandon Turner is a great place to get started. Absolutely. I think that there's, if you are not in an area that you can't invest locally and stuff, there's long distance real estate investing as well. So it doesn't have to be any of those things. And I think mindset is absolutely huge as well. So between the big leap to get you out of what you're currently doing, a mindset book, something by, Bob Proctor, and then any of the real estate books by Brandon Turner will teach you actually how it's possible.
I love it. I asked for one, you gave me a bunch, which
I know, I'm sorry.
I'm here for.
I'm just thinking of the listeners, thinking these are the steps you guys need to go through to know that it's possible for you.
One thing I like that you hit on there is that if you have a learner's mindset, which if you're listening to this, you probably do. Sometimes, you're ingesting something like what you mentioned with Rich Dad Poor Dad when you first read it. And it's just like a seed that's going to sit there for a while and it's not going to bear fruit right away, but it's just going to sit there in the soil, just like some seeds take longer to germinate. And then when the time is right, suddenly it's going to be like, this is coming in handy and everything's happening perfectly. And so there's a lot of value in learning and educating yourself, even if you don't see a direct use for that in your near future, I'd say.
Yep, absolutely. Hold on to those ideas.
So, Meghan, you've shared a lot with us, and I know you do a lot to help investors. Do you want to share a little bit about how people can work with you and how they can connect with you to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. I work in a one-to-one capacity with people because, as you can understand, getting deep into finances, it can be a little bit vulnerable diving into your business. So I only do one-to-one clients. We typically work in a 6-month container where we meet every single week to make sure that we are achieving milestones and moving our business ahead with a strategic plan. I'm most active on Instagram these days. You can find me at Meghan Hubner, MEGHANHUBNER. You'll find me over there. You'll find me on Facebook as well, or you can find my website, which is just meghanhubner.com, and you can book a call through there.
Perfect. And all the links, if you're listening and driving or something, are in the show notes below. So thank you so much, Meghan, for all of the wisdom that you've shared here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. And for our listeners, that is a wrap on today's episode of The Freedom Blueprint. If you got value from this, do me a favor and please subscribe wherever you're listening. Leave us a review. Tell us what was helpful. And then join us again next week for another episode of The Freedom Blueprint.